What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we know that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet will be heading to the Switch later on this year, and now it looks like another Pokemon-like game will be heading to the system as it now has a confirmed release date, and we're going to go over that one here today. Also, we are going to be talking about the PlayStation Plus premium service as it has been rolling out in parts of Asia. It looks like Sony is facing quite a bit of backlash around not only the selection of games, but also how they're handling some of those subscription services for customers that have been stacked at discounts. And we're also going to be talking about rumors heading into June, as it looks like we could see the revival of an old PlayStation franchise. Guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all of the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Dragon's Dogma. Capcom launched a website to celebrate the 10th anniversary of this game, which should make all of us feel old. This was an Xbox 360 game and it's now a decade old, but take a look at this. This is the website saying starting May 2022, Dragon's Dogma is celebrating its 10th anniversary. This, of course, has led to a lot of hype around speculation that we could be seeing a sequel get announced. It was in the NVIDIA leak list. That list is batting like 1,000 at this point, and when we had that entire Capcom leak that took place, that was actually referenced as well as sequel for Dragon's Dogma, so now we kind of look forward and we say, okay, Summer Games Fest could be announced there. Could it be announced in the Xbox showcase as like a third-party game? I mean, sure, or maybe Capcom just takes to Twitter and they're like, hey, Dragon's Dogma 2? It's a thing. Here's the release date. Look out for it. Either way, though, it is kind of cool to see this game get a sequel. I didn't remember it. It wasn't as memorable to me, but there are some pretty big fans out there for Dragon's Dogma. I thought it was a pretty cool game, so I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel for it. Also, it looks like there could be another system after the PlayStation 5. I mean, that shouldn't shock anyone, but there was a job listing that was spotted. We can see this posted up over on DualShockers, PlayStation 6 likely in development with next generation chip in the works. This was a job listing on LinkedIn stating that AMD is looking for a system on chip verification engineer who will be part of a team which developed the chip for Xbox and PlayStation. They specifically mention next generation chip development project. And like, yeah, they're going to work on another system after the PS5. Sony's not just going to fold the PlayStation division, move away from it. They'll create another system and yeah, it'll likely be called the PS6. Now, they could also be working on some sort of mid-generation refresh for the PS5, or who knows, maybe they're working to make that chip more efficient to manufacture and produce, as that seems to be a serious concern for Sony, just getting PS5 systems out there. If I had to guess, though, yeah, this is probably them working on some system well off into the future. Like, it isn't something that's going to come out in the next year or two. Typically, R&D continues forward for whatever's next in the hardware lineup as soon as that system launches. Most likely, someone left the company and they're bringing someone else in, and that's sort of it. The job listing has since disappeared, which tells me either they found the person they needed or they realized what it said in the job listing. Either way, though, yeah, PlayStation 6 will probably happen at some point. Oh, and there is a pretty big sale going on right now on the Xbox Marketplace. You can see this over on MajorNelson.com. About a week or so for this sale that has over 500 games. And while there are a lot of newer titles, I tend to go back and look at some of the older Xbox and Xbox 360 games just for fun because they end up being like dirt cheap. I mean, really, all the Max Payne games, 1, 2, and 3 are all on sale for 40% to half off. You also have things like Saints Row 2, 80% off, which is kind of cool to see that. Spec Ops: The Line. This is a game that I feel like it's just always flown under the radar, but it's such an interesting single player to go through. 80% off. You also have The Darkness 2, 80% off. The Witcher 2, Assassins of Kings, 85% off. I mean, some of these games end up being $3 to $4. I noticed that even Blue Dragon is like $5. And that was such an interesting time period for Microsoft where they were actually trying to develop JRPGs. So definitely check out this sale. Like I said, it'll be ongoing for the next week or so. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with that Pokemon-like game that is set to release later on this year, as we had the announcement yesterday that TemTem will officially leave early access, going version 1.0 on September 6th. There was an entire trailer that was released just showing off some of the features for it, which we can go over here. That includes story campaign, an online world, which, yeah, that means you and some of your friends can jump into the world together and basically play a Pokemon game, co-op adventure with your friends, housing so you can buy your own house and decorate it how you want, furniture, you can change up the walls themselves, invite your friends over for that, customize your character how you want, and they have an entire competitive scene that they'll be leaning into. Now, when it comes to the launch, they will have seasons, which this is a live service game technically, so yes, there will be a battle pass with free and premium awards tracks. There's also an endgame island that they'll be adding in. This is a final island they say completes the Airborne Archipelago. This island will feature new activities through which you can test yourself as a TemTem tamer, new places to shop, and new areas to explore with friends. And they'll also have new weekly quests that they continue to update post-launch. They'll also have physical copies released for the PS5, the Xbox Series, and the Nintendo Switch. Now, this game been in early access for like 2 years or something. I think it was like December 2020, so almost 2 years. It just feels like it's been in early access forever. There was a lot of hype when they were initially showing the game off and then when it came out, but since then, it just kind of died off a bit. But I have seen people get excited once again for this big version 1.0 release. I'm mostly curious for people who have been playing this game throughout early access, how it has kind of progressed, because I played it on PC when it first went early access, and yeah, it felt like a traditional Pokemon game that was a bit more fleshed out when it came to the online experience, but that was kind of it. Like, it didn't feel like a complete game overall, but I understood it was early access and they'd be adding on to it. I will admit some of the stuff they are talking about here in the version 1.0 release sounds like there's more game there now than when I played it, but let me know if you're someone who's been following this, if it actually could compete with Pokemon on the Switch. I don't think it can, because the brand recognition for Pokemon is ridiculous, and TemTem just doesn't have that recognition at this time. I don't know, maybe someday, but either way, at least it is going to a platform where it'll probably be accepted fairly well on the Switch with a bunch of Pokemon games already there. So I'll be curious to see if it's able to get any kind of foothold there on that platform. But I am happy to see there'll be physical copies of it, and I'll be picking it up physically on the Switch when it releases September 6th. Next up, let's talk about a big and expected game reveal. As we had heard in several investors' briefings from Activision, that there would be a new Call of Duty Modern Warfare game from Infinity Ward for 2022. Then we found out, yes, Modern Warfare 2, not to be confused with Modern Warfare 2 from 2009, would be getting released this holiday. Now we have that big official reveal with the release date. You can see some of the reveal here. And they actually go over some of the story somewhat as they talk about some returning characters that people should be pretty excited about. Task Force 141 makes its massive return. This with iconic characters like Captain Price, Ghost, Soap, Gaz, and this game will be releasing October 28th. Now, there will be a cross-gen bundle, because why wouldn't there be? So there won't be a situation where you buy it on the PS4 and then you can upgrade it to the PS5. You'd have to buy the more expensive version of the game, similar to what we went over with something like Battlefield 2042. It just seems to be the way that these third parties want to do this, and I mean, Call of Duty sells no matter what at this point. They also talked a bit about an open beta that will be upcoming, and it looks like PS4 and PS5 will be able to take part first. So most likely what'll happen is they'll do a weekend where it's just PS4 and PS5, and then the following weekend they'll have Xbox and PC join in. Now, again, Activision Blizzard, they are in the process of being bought by Microsoft. So I saw some people wonder, wait, is this Call of Duty going to head into Game Pass day one? Well, probably not, because Microsoft, unless they write a massive check, don't actually own Activision Blizzard yet. That's going to be closing next year in 2023. Although we have heard talks that this deal, or at least the process for it, is going along pretty fast. I don't think it's going to close before Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 comes out in October, but I wouldn't be shocked if maybe in the first quarter of next year it closes, and then this Call of Duty game goes in to that subscription service. I like to play the Call of Duty games for the multiplayer, and I'll run through the single player like maybe once. And I do like the Modern Warfare series and the storyline that they've set up here. So I'll certainly be going through this one. And yeah, I'll be checking out the multiplayer when it releases October 28th. Next up, let's talk about Sony's PlayStation Plus Premium rollout, which has been in the news quite a bit this week as they are working to launch it in parts of Asia. We've seen things like the launch lineup when it comes to the classic original PlayStation games, as well well as some of the PlayStation Extras library with some third-party games that just kind of got thrown in there, like Balan Wonderworld. But when it comes to the overall pricing and how you would upgrade, it looks like Sony is seeing some backlash here from gamers. We can see this over on VGC, who's been collecting a lot of the information from around the internet, saying users claim PlayStation Plus upgrades penalize those who use discounts and stacked subscriptions, going as far as Sony being accused of anti-consumer upgrade options. They say among the complaints being leveled at Sony, it's claimed that players who purchase their existing subscription using a discount are being charged extra to upgrade to a different PlayStation Plus tier, wiping out any previous savings. They go on to say players who previously stacked PlayStation Plus memberships also claim that in order to upgrade to a new subscription tier, they're required to do so for the entire duration of their plan, which in some cases run for years and require making a significant upfront payment. So let's say you had bought PlayStation Plus at like a discount and it's like $45, right? You want to go up to premium. Well, you now have to pay, $75 on top of that. But let's say you have it for like 4 years. Well, you got to then multiply that by 4 and divide by like the square root of that's the one thing I was looking through the Reddit posts and all the discussions on forums. And there were like math equations and formulas being devised on how you can figure out how much money you actually need to pay based on your discount level and your subscription length. And it's all over the place. This is way more complicated than it needs to be. And the thing I'm curious about with Sony is all this worth what's probably going to amount to a couple thousand people who actually had a meaningful stack of PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now subscriptions. I mean, I would argue no, and it's something you just live with at that point, the cost of doing business and wanting to basically take your PlayStation Plus audience and try to merge them into this new subscription service. Like some of these deals are going to slip through the cracks, and that's kind of the way it is. But Sony's like, no, none of these are getting through. We're figuring out a way to prorate you no matter what. And then on top of that, there's been some backlash around the selection of games, specifically the number that was advertised versus how many are actually there after you sign up. We can see this over on Eurogamer. They say a guide to PlayStation Plus published yesterday on the PlayStation blog mentions 700 games available across the subscription's various plans, a rough figure we've heard from Sony before, with the caveat these games will vary over time and plan. They go on to say, however, the list of games provided by PlayStation for Asia and the Hong Kong region currently runs to 269 titles, far fewer than the 700 that they had estimated. Now, of course, there are PlayStation 3 streaming games that would be available, but they're not available in like all parts of the world. So you kind of remove those and you think, okay, maybe 100, maybe 200 games be removed, not 500 though. All of this has led to a ton of blowback on social media. If you look on Twitter, a lot of the responses to them announcing the rollout in parts of Asia has been like, hey, what are you doing? Why does it cost $700 for me to upgrade to this tier after I had already paid for like 4 or 5 years? Why are games missing? This isn't what's advertised. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I have to imagine that's one of the reasons that Sony didn't do a massive global rollout and they wanted to do in certain parts of the world at first for feedback and to figure out, okay, what do we have to change and alter? At least that's my hope. Also, there's the idea of if they rolled it out everywhere and everyone had access to streaming PS3 games, the stuff would crash because PS Now has never really been tested beyond, like I said, like the 15 or 20 people that had it. So right now, I'm hoping that Sony is taking note of a lot of the feedback that they're seeing right now and work to correct a lot of this stuff now for parts of Asia, and then also as they work up to rolling this service out in other parts of the world like Europe and North America. But I guess we'll see as we get into June what they do with this. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about some rumors heading into June around an older PlayStation franchise that could indeed be making a return, and that is Sly Cooper. And I say older because I mean, it's on the PS3. That's the last iteration that we had. It never found its way onto the PlayStation 4, but now there are some rumblings around there being a new Sly Cooper game revealed from Sucker Punch. We can see this posted up. This from comicbook.com, and the reason I'm using them, which is funny because I don't really use comicbook.com that often, but they claim to have also heard about there being a Sly Cooper game in development. Anyway, this was mentioned in the latest episode of Xbox Era Podcast. Nick Baker shared that he doesn't believe any announcements related to the new Sly Cooper for PS5 will come about next month in June. In recent days, rumors have swirled about suggesting that Sony could hold a new PlayStation State of Play style event within the month. Now, Nick does say that he doesn't believe Sly Cooper 5, or whatever it's actually called, will be announced at this time. Instead, he stated that it should come about a date later on in 2022. And I also noticed that account NGT mentions sometime in September, and as they were saying, since early March. Going on further to say, the same source told me a few weeks ago there was no big showcase was planned until September, which coincides with another time an announcement in September. And the source also thinks that Infamous will be announced this year. I don't know if Infamous is going to be announced this year, but I do kind of think there's going to be an Infamous game announced at some point. But Sly Cooper is the one that I'm very curious about, because it doesn't necessarily seem like a game that Sony would be all gung-ho about getting Sucker Punch to do, as Sly Cooper wasn't exactly a focus for Sony during the PS4 era. The last one that came out was, 2013 on the PlayStation 3. They didn't do like a collection for it on the PS4, so it's interesting that all of a sudden they would have been like, yeah, we gotta do a Sly Cooper 5. Again, strange stuff there, but I mean, hey, it would definitely throw in at least something a bit different to the PlayStation lineup than we're kind of used to. Also, the thing about a PlayStation showcase not happening until September sounds disappointing enough to be correct. In fact, I don't know if Sony needs much else other than maybe a God of War State of Play just to confirm the release date later on this year so they can start the big marketing push for this game all over the internet, and then hold out for a September big showcase with things like, sure, a Sly Cooper 5, and I guess show off Infamous, and maybe we see more about Spider-Man 2 and so on there from some of their different studios. But we'll see, because if a God of War State of Play shows up in the next month or two, then yeah, we're probably going to be waiting until fall to hear more from Sony about the rest of their lineup. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, does Sony announce a new Sly Cooper this year? Oh, 81% said no, 19% said yes. Maybe it's just the way that Sony has kind of presented themselves as wanting to do things like these big budget games that cost hundreds of millions of dollars. They're not going to do that for Sly Cooper, but could they make something on the level of Ratchet & Clank that didn't cost them hundreds of millions of dollars to make? I mean, sure, I don't see why not. Sure, do something a bit different than we're used to with their narrative-driven experiences like Horizon or Ghost of Tsushima or Last of Us. Sometimes it's fun to throw a Ratchet & Clank, an Astro Bot, or a Sly Cooper in there to mix things up a bit. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Mr. L saying, the only explanation I can think of for the PAL versions is available languages. A lot of NTSC versions wouldn't have much of any option in that regard. Still, this is a lazy solution. I've said this about some of Nintendo's classic games, and I'll say it here. It'd be better if they would just mod in the different languages to the best running version of the game. I mean, the translation is already done. Yeah, that's the weird thing about this. They go far enough to do trophy support and all these filters and extras on top of that. But then they're like, oh yeah, throw the PAL version in there and just let them run at 50 hertz, which is going to be a pretty rough experience, especially if you're sensitive to some of the frame timing issues that will inevitably be there. So I'm not sure. Maybe it does roll out in other regions and they're like, oh no, we do have the 60 hertz NTSC version available. But right now, I mean, all we can expect is that 50 hertz PAL version. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, where there's TemTem finally releasing version 1.0 on the Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation. Are you excited to jump into this game when it releases in September? Let me know about that. But also, what about the PlayStation Plus premium situation with the games not matching up to the amount that were advertised, and then the way Sony handling like the pro-rated pricing if you happen to stack your PlayStation Plus subscription. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.